What we saw over the weekend in Montreal, what we saw over the weekend in Toronto, despicable. Two very different protests, but still despicable in both of Canada's two largest cities. Hi, I'm Brian Lilly, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. Friday night's display in Montreal, you might have heard it was called an anti-NATO riot or protest by someone in the media. Sure, it was outside a NATO meeting, but they were protesting Israel's existence, and they were protesting in support of Hamas. And we need to be clear about that. And too many in the media are not. These were pro-Hamas protesters. These were people who decided that it was okay to smash the windows of the Palais de Congrès, the convention center in Montreal, to set cars on fire, or in one case, to be giving a Hitler salute and talking about the final solution is coming for you. That's not about NATO. That's about Jews. That's about Jew hatred, and it needs to be condemned. It took the prime minister too long to do it, but he eventually did, first in a post and then in a speech before the NATO Parliamentary Assembly meeting Monday morning in Montreal.
Those responsible.
That what we saw in the violence and the riots on Friday night are absolutely unacceptable. As a democracy, as a country that will always defend the freedom of speech, it's important for people to be able to go out and protest and express their anger, their disagreements in free and comfortable ways. But there is never any room for anti-Semitism, for hatred, for discrimination, for violence.
That outburst was handled by police in Montreal eventually. It got out of hand, absolutely, but that is often the case in Montreal. And as Michel Gendron, who works for the Canadian Police Association, has pointed out, police have been handcuffed in doing their jobs properly for quite some time by police leadership. In Montreal, they took care of it. Now, let's talk about Toronto. Since the start of the war between Hamas and Israel, when Hamas invaded Israel and launched their attacks, there have been rallies at the area of Bathurst and Sheppard every Sunday. But for the past few weeks, there have been counter-protesters coming out. People not from that predominantly Jewish neighborhood driving in, some from well outside of town, driving in to harass them, to intimidate them. One guy even showing up this weekend with a chair and clothing to make himself look like a Hamas fighter based on what was spray painted on the back of his chair. He intended to be there as Sinwar, the now dead terrorist leader of Hamas, one of the architects of the October 7th terrorist attacks. That is trying to intimidate an entire neighborhood, and they have done it repeatedly. And Toronto police have had a soft-handed approach. But you know what? They did make some arrests on Sunday in Toronto. They arrested Ezra Levant. Now, some of you know I used to work with Ezra. I have not talked about Ezra publicly for a long time. We just don't. That doesn't happen. We had a major split that was well documented. But I'm willing to talk about him now because it is so egregious what they did in arresting him, going over with his cameras to try and interview the people who were there. They accused him of disturbing the peace. So he gets arrested. He gets charged with disturbing the peace. The people actually disturbing the police, the Hamasnik protesters cosplaying as Sinwar, they get to sit there and hang out.
Well, because it's not up to him to say you have free speech there, but not you.
Well, yeah, because you're inciting this crowd and then it breaches the peace.
Well,
your presence is inciting them, and that's exactly what you're trying to do.
Because I'm a Jew.
No, because you're trying to incite them.
I haven't tried to incite them. I went to take a picture of the hate crime that you're
abiding. You could have done it on the
abiding.
other side. You didn't need to walk over
No,
here.
I wanted to go out. I don't
Now I'm
think
going to tell you to
anyone-
move over there.
And also,
if you don't
I allowed you. I
press,
allowed you to take that video. I allowed you to take that
yeah.
video.
I'm not
So you're
crossing the
refusing
road.
to leave?
I'm refusing to leave.
Why?
Because I'm a Jew, I'm a citizen, and I'm your boss. And I don't leave because you say Jews aren't
Well, you know
allowed on
what?
the street.
In the interest of keeping peace here and public safety, you're under arrest for breach of the peace. Take a minute.
Good! Take this. I'm being arrested because I'm standing on the sidewalk in my city.
Toronto police is facing an incredible crisis of leadership. This comes from the top. I mean, look at this tweet of Gerard. who has been at the forefront of protests, who has screamed out support for the resistance, meaning Hamas, week after week in the streets of Toronto. Nothing's happened to this guy. And there he is having a good laugh with one of the senior officers on site. The leadership rot in the Toronto Police Service is unreal. Now, how much of that is Chief Demkiw and how much of that is political pressure from Mayor Chow? We won't really know. Someone will eventually have to spill the beans, but it's just another sign of why there needs to be a change in leadership, not only at city halls, both in Toronto and Montreal, but at their respective police services. And we need to allow police to get back to doing their jobs, not being involved in trying to settle political disputes and land disputes on the other side of the world here in Toronto. Apply the law. There are so many ways that they could be breaking up these rallies that happen every week that do block traffic, not like the one at Bathurst and Shepherd that doesn't. The Palestinian supporting ones, the Hamas supporting ones that choke up the streets, that shout out slogans, genocidal slogans. Those have not been dealt with. But you're going to arrest Ezra Levant for trying to ask someone questions. Shame on the Toronto police. Shame on Chief Demkiw, and shame on Mayor Chow. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment down below, share this on social media, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.